Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe. Is Daniel Bryan getting a new heel faction? Half of NXT debut on the main roster, and Nia Jax gets RKO'd from outer male-female equality. I'm Ollie Davis. Let me know what you thought of the show in the comments down below, because I'll be replying to people from out of nowhere and voting the poll above my head where you can choose from best of both worlds, great per view, thumbs in the middle, meh per view, and worst of both worlds, while I review Royal Rumble 2019. After Daniel Bryan cut a promo on a burger, presumably for being so goddamn delicious, Drake Maverick booked an impromptu non-title match between Raw Tag Champions Chad Gable and Bobby Roode and the Franken team of Scott Dawson from The Revival and Razor of AOP, presumably because we didn't have enough matches on the card already. That was sarcastic. As much as I enjoyed this show, and I really did, my broken record is still playing. WWE pay-per-views are way too long. Speaking of broken records, Raw's tag division is still an afterthought, where Gable and Roode won a nothing match. Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev had a much better showing, even with the camera cutting to Lana every other move, because there's foreshadowing, and then there's foreshadowing! If you hadn't guessed already, Lana played into the finish when the Bulgarian brute accidentally knocked her off the apron, letting Nakamura hit a Kinshasa to the back of his head and become the new United States champion. Or was he already the United States champion? I can't remember. They haven't been on TV that much. Buddy Murphy retained his Cruiserweight title in a thrilling four-way, pinning Hideo Itami for the win. There were a series of brilliantly inventive spots, mostly around ... dives. I just wish it went 5 minutes longer. It was also on the pre-show where Jonathan Coachman made the shock reveal that John Cena won't be in the Royal Rumble match due to injury. Thanks for the medical update, Coachman! Which is a work. Cena's actually shooting a movie, and WWE knew all along he'd never be available for the match, but continued to promote him until the show itself. Classy move. The main card kicked off with Becky Lynch, Asuka, and a row of terrifying CGI baby masks.
We are your demonic overlords now, Arizona.
I much prefer Pyro because A, these graphics are going to look horribly dated in just a few minutes, and 2, the crowd can actually see Pyro. Thankfully, they had an in-the-flesh Becky to pop them instead, who fought a terrifically fiery back-and-forth match with Asuka. Every time Lynch would briefly be on top, Asuka would somehow lock in a submission, leading her to finally mega-evolving her Asuka lock by bridging over Lynch's head, forcing Becky to tap. I've got nothing against Asuka winning here, but Lynch should have passed out in the hold instead, as that's more fitting with her never-give-up fighting character. Despite being initially hesitant in forming a tag team with The Miz, Shane McMahon went straight for Sheamus as soon as the bell rung, unloading a series of horrible-looking punches, reminding everyone that he is, indeed, a 49-year-old untrained wrestler. They then told the story of 49-year-old untrained wrestler Shane saving 16 years of experience wrestler The Miz from being worked over. That said, this was a fun match, with great spots where Cesaro caught McMahon's coast-to-coast in an extended swing, and a spectacular shooting Shane press for the win. The two celebrated with Miz's real-life dad at ringside, telling the story that the former WWE champion and WrestleMania main eventer was only now getting his father's pride on winning the SmackDown tag belts. But move aside, Miz Dad, because I'm far more proud of the Swaft Nation, who got a Swaft sign right in Miz and Shane's celebration shot, confusing fans everywhere. It's boss time. Shut up, Michael Cole! It's also crazy Ronda pay-per-view makeup time. Ronda and Sasha had an intense, violent brawl, with Banks crucially getting a lot of offense. Rousey's selling of her submissions was so good in spots, it helped you believe in the idea Sasha could win. A one-armed hulking Ronda beat her with a Piper's Pit in the end though, where the two eventually shook hands. But as Banks walked away, she held up the 4 horsewomen signal, hinting things aren't over between Ronda and the Sasha, Bayley, Becky and Charlotte faction that haven't ever been recognized as a faction. And most of them are often feuding with each other. What's going on? The Women's Royal Rumble match topped off a run of excellent showings for the lady division, with this year's focus on the current and next generation talent far surpassing 2018's reliance on nostalgic cameos and bellas. Bellas everywhere. There wasn't a returning legend in sight, not even a Lita, with the closest being an odd showdown between Divas era hangovers Alicia Fox and Maria Kanellis. It was nowhere near as odd as Zelina Vega hiding under the ring to be scared off by a sudden Hornswoggle appearance next to her. Hornswoggle by name, Horny-swoggle by nature. I'm surprised it wasn't Otis Dozovich. The best spots included Zelina Vega and Candice LeRae's stare down, recalling their great Almas vs Gargano feud, and a load of fantastically inventive near-elimination spots from Casey Catanzaro and Ember Moon, with Naomi's barricade run and leap being the most impressive. But the true genius was in the finish. My heart was broken when I remembered Mixed Match Challenge was a thing that happened in this timeline, meaning Carmella would come out at number 30, not Becky Lynch. But it was all a brilliant swerve, with number 29 Lana hobbling to the ring after her ankle injury in the Rusev vs Nakamura pre-show match. Fit Finlay let Lynch take her spot for the Irish. It all fittingly came down to Becky versus Charlotte, whose blood and title feuds have really leveled up the SmackDown's women's division, which Lynch eventually overcame despite wrestling earlier on and Nia Jax taking out her leg. The man wins the Women's Royal Rumble. Wait, what? It came at the expense of the most anticipated match on the card, though. The Women's Rumble was a tough act to follow, and while the story of Daniel Bryan targeting AJ's arm versus Styles taking out Bryan's leg was solid, its slower pace never connected with the crowd the way these two guys should. It wasn't much helped by the strange angle that played into the finish. Big Red Eric Rowan, who returned from injury by cosplaying as Daniel Bryan, and then chokeslammed AJ after a ref bump for Bryan to get the win. The idea of Bryan leading an eco-warrior faction straight-edge society style is very exciting, but it also comes with a lot of disheartening questions. Was that limp chokeslam really devastating enough to see off AJ? Why not have the much more talented and popular Luke Harper in this spot? And does that mean the Bludgeon Brothers have been scrapped? The concept is good, but the execution lacked impact. Brock Lesnar vs Finn Balor succeeded in every way though. No Demon Balor aside, because let's be honest, Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship is big, but it's not Baron Corbin at SummerSlam big. What are the rules? What are the rules? This was one of the rare matches where Brock not only cared, he sold. Lesnar never stopped clutching the top of his leg after ramming it into the announcer's desk, letting Balor use his speed to get on top. Brock's selling was so good, very similar to Rousey's in fact, that you bought into the idea that Finn could win. But even a coup de grace wasn't enough, as Brock desperately locked in a Kimura to make Finn tap, the type of victory he had over Bryan and AJ before, where he won in a decisive fashion, but you really believed he was in trouble. Brock gave Balor 3 Germans and an F5 afterwards, which could be to set up a rematch, or more likely, he's just Lesnar being a dick. Just like the Women's Rumble, the men's match was focused on the present and future, with only 2 legend spots who were eliminated early. The brilliantly placed Jeff Jarrett entry with Elias and an underused run from Kurt Angle. The first 2/3 of the match were really elevated by the SmackDown roster. Samoa Joe choking out everyone, Kofi Kingston walking around the outside on his hands, and an amazing babyface from Mustafa Ali, who not only eliminated his Tuesday night nemesis Joe, but also Nakamura, potentially setting up a very exciting US Championship promo, if that title's ever allowed back on TV. Most intriguing were the NXT debuts though, with Aleister Black, Pete Dunne and Johnny Gargano teasing some future dream matches, like Dunne vs Black, Dunne vs Joe, Dunne vs Ali, Dunne vs Drew, Dunne vs Andrade, dun dun dun! Gargano and Dunne are most likely cameos, soon to return to their NXT and NXT UK promotions, but Black not only lost at TakeOver, he's also been rumoured for a full main roster call-up for months, and eliminated Dean Ambrose here, possibly setting up his first feud. And he's not the only person potentially moving into a new roster, as Nia Jax beat up R-Truth at number 30 and took his place in the Men's Royal Rumble. That sounds crazy. It was crazy. I mean, is that legal? Fit Finlay wasn't there to give it the okay. Does that mean a man can enter the Women's Royal Rumble? What are the rules? What are the rules! But as insane as Nia Jax entering the men's Royal Rumble was, it was inspired. One of the biggest heels in the company, who had legit knocked out our top babyface Becky in November, and then kayfabe tried to injure her in the earlier Women's Rumble match, ended up getting RKO'd and 619 from Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio. We got to see a woman get beaten up by guys because she deserved it. Which sounds awful out of context of a wrestling show. The final two came down to Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins, who, in honor of his Shield brother Roman Reigns, spent the last 10 minutes doing nothing after being put through a table. After a great-looking curb stomp on the apron, Seth won the opportunity to point at the WrestleMania sign. The show was way too long, and the most anticipated match in AJ vs. Bryan disappointed, but overall this was a tremendously enjoyable pay-per-view. Dare I say, I was even more sports entertained than NXT TakeOver the previous night. Royal Rumble 2019 is the best of both worlds. The only downside is Luke and I coming joint last in WrestleTalk's Fantasy Predictions League. Head over to Patreon now to suggest and vote on which wrestling entrance theme we should do a duet cover of. I'm not saying you should make it the greatest love I've ever known, but do that. Click the Patreon link on screen now to make your punishment suggestions, where you'll also get shout-outs on WrestleTalk videos and access to exclusive monthly podcasts. I've been Ollie Davis, and that was wrestling.